Good morning, Patreon. I've gotten a lot of questions from a lot of people here on Patreon about, Bear, what do I do as an over-the-road truck driver to bug out or to get home, which are two very different things, kind of opposite directions. I've done a video about this with C103 and the Sasquatch 6 months or so ago on Patreon. If somebody can find that post, you can post the link to that and that only in the comments below, because C103 was an OTR truck driver and is a prepper. So I'll rehash a little bit of what he said in that video, and I'll rehash a lot of what I've said in other videos. First, I'm not an over-the-road truck driver, and so this is not my first-hand experience. This is more my positing thoughts on the subject based upon what I can infer are the issues with being an over-the-road truck driver and being far afield from your support network and your people. Second, the idea here is not for me to instruct you in what to do. It's to make you think about your situation and then use that critical thinking to improve the actuality of your situation. Okay. So, over-the-road truck driving to me is very much so a situation where you should be networking with people and developing spider points. Now, some OTR drivers have very consistent routes. And Monday, I'm in Santa Fe, and on Wednesday, I'm in Austin, and on Friday, I'm, I don't know, Tulsa, and then I haul back to Santa Fe or whatever. I'm just making these things up. I don't know if that's realistic or not, okay? But it's very consistent. If you find yourself with a route that's very consistent, you should be developing contacts along that route. You should have pre-positioned caches along that route. I've done a prepper classroom on PPCs and emplacements, okay? You should have the stuff that you're gonna need along that route if it's a route that you're driving regularly, for real, because you are going to be really far from home and you're not going to be able to carry everything you need on your back, and you don't want to, in a moment of desperation, have to compromise your morals and ethics and do something that'll haunt you for the rest of your life because you didn't take the time and the effort now to plan appropriately. I don't want that for you either. So if you drive the same route, PPCs are a great way to go. Pre-positioned caches, okay? If you don't, if it's pretty much random, if you're just waiting to see what the next load that comes up from the broker and you're like, oh, I'm going to Corvallis, Oregon, and I'm in Charlotte. Okay, well, that's a haul. What do I do to get home again? Man, it's still going to help you to have contacts, but those contacts need to be everywhere. A great example of this, and I had not read it until recently, is Locker 9 by the author Franklin Horton, which apparently is now a series. And in that book, if you haven't read it, it's like, what, $15 for the hard copy or the paperback, the physical copy on Amazon. Caveat, I don't think prepping, or I should say, I don't think using prepper fiction as an instruction manual is the wisest methodology for implementing actual preparedness, but there's a lot of good concepts in these prepper novels. If you can remove the, well, we didn't know what we were going to do, and then all of a sudden, Sarge from the 82nd Airborne, or 101st, wasn't Sarge 101st? Sarge showed up in his boat with a mini-me on the bow, and he started laying down a, suppressive fire and was like, "Get in, everybody." Okay, cool. That's a great story. Probably not going to happen for you. So your plans should not include Sarge showing up with his mini-me, okay? And that's not the tiny person from that Mike Myers movie. It's the FN mini-me, which is the 249 SAW in America, in the United States military, DOD. So anyway, point being, in Locker 9, this father sets up a bunch of waypoints and spider points for his daughter to get home if something goes bad. And it illustrates some of the concepts that we discussed in that whiteboard that Franklin Horton had latched onto on his own, which is great because in the mouths of 2 or 3 is everything established. Wonderful. Deuteronomy. But if you're dependent upon the broker to know where your next load is and it's generally random, you need contacts everywhere. Because to walk home from Corvallis, Oregon to your home in Macon, Georgia, that's a hell of a long trip. I feel led to go here. I think that there's going to be a wholesale slaughtering of truck drivers, and I don't mean physically, but in the jobs market within the next decade because of automation. Right now, it's in the top 3 as far as jobs that people do for employment. Right now is truck driving in the United States of America. I think it's the #1 job in Arkansas. And I think across the board, it's in the top 3. It may be #1, but I feel like something knocked it out. I don't remember. Point being, millions upon millions of Americans are employed driving trucks. That's one of the reasons you see such a push to automate the driving of trucks, because A, people cost money. B, people's mistakes cost lots of money, aka insurance and payments and settlements and annuities and blah, 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 blah. And so automation that can fix that by putting people out of work is very attractive to people who run businesses predicated on bottom lines and P&L statements as compared to people who run businesses based upon understanding that if you have 10 employees, you work for 10 people don't work for you. Anyway, but I digress. So I said all that to say, man, the clouds on top of that mountain look sick. That's not what I was going to say, but squirrel moment. Shiny object syndrome. I said all that to say maybe now is the time to start thinking about what can I do regionally, locally, that doesn't take me so far away from home that I have to worry about how to get home from Corvallis, Oregon to Macon, Georgia, or whatever. That's a long haul, man. That is a long haul. Practical, tactical. You need to know how to use the stuff in your bag. You need to be able to carry your bag. You should have a bag. What should be in it? Most employers don't want you to have weapons in their company-owned trucks. I don't care. 2 reasons. 1, shall not be infringed. And yes, you could say it's at the employer's discretion that they can specify because they own the equipment. Absolutely. Absolutely. But shall not be infringed and need to know. Nobody needs to know that you got a Glock 26 tucked underneath the seat or whatever. Okay? Need to know. So, and it's also understanding, getting back to training, that pistols are not magic wands, rifles are not magic wands. You have to actually train with them. You have to have the physicality to carry your kit. Your kit needs to be well thought out, useful items, which means you have to take your gear and use it and determine what you need. Some people need 4 pairs of socks. Some people can get away with 3. Some people absolutely have to have cornstarch so that they don't chafe their skin off when they walk long distances. Some people are kind of like, meh, I like pantyhose or whatever, right? Some people, I don't know. You get the point, all right? Your needs and wants are personal. They're highly personal. And the push-pull here is we all have the same basic needs: food, water, shelter, air, love, whatever, right? But our individual needs, if you're on a blood pressure medication, guess what? You better have blood pressure medication in your bug out bag, okay? So you need to go use your stuff and pare that kit down to the bare minimum of what you need to carry, because you're going to be carrying it a long distance. I really hate the concept of hunting, fishing, trapping, scavenging, foraging your way to prosperity in end times, especially while afoot, because it's historically a very hard life. And if I'm bugging out or trying to get home, in either scenario, my job is to get home or get from A to B as quickly as possible. I don't really want to be taking the time to acquire food. However, in your case, you can't carry all of it, which is why you either need pre-positioned caches, or you need a network of people that you can depend on, or you need to be closer to home, or you're gonna gamble on being able to acquire the calories you need to get from where you are to where you need to be. C103 said that everybody he knew that was a driver, they consistently carried cash. A good amount of cash. I'm a big fan of that. And it doesn't all need to be $100 bills, but if you need to get a bicycle, which is one of the things that he said, if you got a $100 bill, and and this comes back to having bug out indicators, being switched on, paying attention. If you can see things are bad, buy that bike from that kid for $100 cash right now. Hop on that bike, start pedaling, right? $100 well spent. Or if there's a river you need to get across and there's two guys in a John boat, grease their palm with a couple of hundreds or whatever, great. But maybe there's a little store, it's early on in the collapse, and there's a little store that's, corner mom and pop market or something that's still operable, and you want a can of Dinty Moore beef stew. Well, you don't want to trade $100 for that. And we can get into the argument as to how valuable that $100 is going to be for how long. Well, that entirely depends on what the collapse looks like. But point being, lots of cash in several different denominations is good, very good. An HF radio and knowing how to use it and the ability to recharge it on the fly and people on the other end to talk to is very good. I think it really comes back to awareness and career path. You need to be vigilant in your awareness, and you need to leave early, really early. The greater the distance you are from where you need to be when the balloon goes up, the sooner you need to leave. Let's go. All right, cut ties and run, man. Go. Drop that trailer and deadhead, whoosh, back to wherever you need to be. An upside is you can get considerable range with a lot of those rigs, right? And you can also carry a lot of weight. So that's something to think about. So if it's not an EMP, man, maybe what you need to do is have some stuff tucked in your sleeper, always remembering that all systems devolve into a man-portable system, but have some stuff tucked in your sleeper and keep those tanks topped off and go. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know the range on some of these rigs, but I know that when I did power construction, we had some trucks that could easily go 600 or 800 miles without needing to be fueled. We had some other trucks that were more in the range like 300 miles. And so it all depends, right? Everything depends. But yeah, the farther away you are, the more vigilant you need to be, and you need to be able to actually use the stuff that you have. OTR drivers tend to suffer from a lack of physicality in their job. They sit on their asses for long periods of time and eat a lot of garbage and drink a lot of garbage, and therefore their physicality is garbage. And I say that with all love just because I've seen it. I've had a lot of truck drivers that have worked for me over the years because I personally have owned a lot of trucks, and I personally have been responsible for a lot of trucks that the company that I worked for owned, like several hundred on a job. And so you do have drivers that are, you know, very vigilant about what they eat. They do exercise. They're constantly getting out of their truck and moving when they're getting loaded or getting unloaded, and they maintain, you know, appropriate body mass, a muscularity, so forth and so on. Then you have other drivers that basically look like a Hershey's Kiss with arms and legs sitting behind the wheel, and it's like, man, that guy's not bugging out 300 miles back to home. With almost 100% certainty, it's not going to go well for that guy. So have a kit, know what kit you need, don't carry stuff you don't need, actually know how to use the stuff that's in the kit, work your contacts, plan your routes so that you can navigate on the fly from where you are to where you need to be using spider points and waypoints, have the ability to communicate for sure, and you really need to figure out your calories game. And I think your wardrobe also, this I'll end here, is your wardrobe should be very practical. Very practical. If you're driving around in Montana and it's winter, you better have some warm clothes and good boots. Yeah, see what I mean? So, with all that being said, shalom and blessing, patrons. I hope this was helpful to you. And I'm interested in your productive comments. Anybody who is a truck driver and who has thought this through, please let us know. I'd like to know, really would like to know what insight you have into this, because again, I've not done this. This was not my job per se. I can deduce from what I know about the situation what could or couldn't be good plans of attack here, but hashtag not my job, bro. I simply don't know because I haven't lived it. Shalom, y'all.